Finishing a crochet project is always satisfying, but sometimes it can feel like something's missing, and that something is often a border. The right border can completely transform your project, whether it's a blanket, a scarf, or even a tapestry for your wall. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to make the puff stitch border. Before adding any of the decorative borders to my swatches, I like to start with a base round of single crochet. You can see I've already done that with these swatches here. And the reason we want to do that is to neaten up the edges and give us a clean, even foundation to work the border into. Most of the time, I like to use the same color as the swatch for this round so it blends in. And then we can switch to a contrasting color for the main border. But that part is totally up to you. You can get creative with it depending on the look that you're going for. So let's just really quickly look at how we're going to do this single crochet border. So to start your single crochet border, make sure that the right side of your swatch is facing you. If you've just finished your last row and the yarn is still attached, you can use that. Just chain one to begin a new round. And if you're on the wrong side currently, make sure you turn your work so that the right side is facing you. But if you're like me and you don't have yarn attached, we're just going to join it in the top right-hand corner up here. So to do that, I'm going to start with a slip knot on my hook. And then insert your hook into the very first stitch in the top right-hand corner and complete a single crochet. And then we're going to work all the way across the top of here, just placing one single crochet into each stitch. Now, of course, if your swatch is done with a different stitch, so say, for example, maybe it's moss stitch and you've got a chain space every other stitch, you'd also work into each of those chain spaces as well. You just want to work nice and evenly across the top until you get to the very last stitch. And when we get to the end of the row, we need to turn this corner. And to do that, we need to put 3 single crochets into this very last stitch. So we'll do 1, 2, and then 3. And that has allowed us to turn that corner and continue working down the edge of our work here. Now with my swatch, I was working mostly in single crochet. And that means that when I'm working down here, I can just put 1 stitch into the end of each row, and that's going to be nice and even. But if you're working with a different stitch, a taller stitch, for example, like double crochet, you might need to put more than 1 stitch per row. So if we take a look at one of my other swatches, this one, for example, has some double crochet stitches, and I had to put 2 single crochets into some of the rows. But the important thing here is not necessarily the number of stitches per row, it's that your work is nice and even. You want to check that as you're working, it's not puckering up or becoming wavy, that it is lying nice and flat like this. But as I said, if you've got a swatch like mine, which is mostly worked in a single crochet, it's nice and easy. We can just put 1 single crochet in the end of each row. And we're going to work all the way down this side until we get to the foundation chain down here. And when we get to the end of that edge, it's time to turn the corner. But before we do that, make sure you lie your piece out flat and make sure that this edge is staying nice and flat like that and that it isn't puckering up. If it is, don't worry, just rip out your stitches and try again. Add some more stitches or fewer stitches until you get a nice even edge like this. And when you're happy, we can turn this corner. So we're just going to find the very first foundation chain here. And we're going to work 3 single crochets into there, just like we did with the previous corner. So 1, 2, and 3. And just as we did before at the top here, we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of our foundation chains until we get to this last one here. And again, we'll place 3 single crochets into the last one. Then we'll turn our work around like this and work into the edge of these rows, just like we did over here. So you can go ahead and work all the way across here, work into this corner here, and then work down this edge here. And I'll meet you at the end of this edge where I'll show you how we're going to finish things off. And when you've worked all the way around your square, it should look something like this. Now, when we started our border, we began in this corner up here. And we only put 1 single crochet in this corner, but as you know, we normally put 3 single crochets in the corner. So to finish this off, we're just going to put 2 more single crochets into that same stitch where we worked our first single crochet. So that is right there. So 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, and then we're just going to slip stitch with that first stitch there. And then we can cut our yarn and fasten off. Or if you want to do the next part of the border in the same color, you can of course keep it attached, but I'm going to be using a contrasting color. So I'm going to fasten off and weave in that end before I get started with the next step. And the border we're going to look at is the puff stitch border. And this is a really fun one because you get these nice big puff stitches all the way around the edge. And I think it looks really cool. And to get started, we're going to begin with a slip knot on our hook. And we're going to join in one of the corner stitches. So where we've got our 3 single crochets in the corner, we'll just find the middle stitch. And we're just going to slip stitch to join and then chain 2. So 1 and 2. And then we're going to skip the next stitch and work into the stitch after it, which is this one here. And we're going to do a half double crochet. So insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. And now we're going to do 3 half double crochets together into this space here that we've just created. So this is going to look like this. Yarn over, insert your hook into that space, yarn over and pull up a loop. You've got 3 loops on your hook now. Yarn over again, insert back into that same space. Yarn over and pull up a loop. You should have 5 loops on your hook now. And we're going to do it one more time. Yarn over, insert into that same space. Yarn over and pull up a loop. You should now have 7 loops on your hook. And you're just going to yarn over and pull through all 7 of those loops. And you might need to wiggle your hook a bit to get them all the way through. But you're left with a puff stitch that looks like this. Then we're going to chain 1 and we'll skip the next stitch and half double crochet into the stitch after it. And then we'll do that half double crochet 3 together into this space again. So just as a reminder, yarn over, insert into that space, yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert into that space, yarn over and pull up a loop. And then one more time, yarn over, insert into that space, yarn over, pull up a loop. And now with 7 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 7 loops. And then to finish it off, just chain 1. And you're going to repeat that all the way across. So skip a stitch, half double crochet into the next stitch, half double crochet 3 together into that space, and then chain 1. And you can actually work this all the way around your project. You don't need to do anything special in the corner because this stitch is quite forgiving, just like the picot stitch that we did previously. So it's really straightforward once you get a hang of this puff stitch, which can feel a bit fiddly to begin with. But don't worry, once you get going, you'll really fall into the rhythm with this stitch. And it's completely worth learning to do because it's a really fun one. So I've now worked all the way around my border. I've got 1 stitch left unworked, and then after that we've got where we joined at the beginning. However, you might have a different stitch count to me, and in which case you might have just worked into this stitch here, and then you've got no stitches left, and you've just got the chain 2 where we started here. If that's the case, you can go ahead and just slip stitch with the top of that chain 2 to finish. But if, like me, you've got 1 stitch left unworked, we can actually work another puff stitch into here. So I'm going to work a half double crochet into that same stitch that we started in at the beginning of the round. And then I'll do a half double crochet 3 together to do my puff stitch. And then chain 1, and then just slip stitch either into the chain or into the top of the half double crochet. It doesn't really matter. And that's just going to finish the round for us. And then we can fuss it off and we are all done with that border. And I absolutely love the texture that we get with this border. And it sort of looks like you've got these beads all the way around the edge of your work, which I think just looks really interesting. And if you want more tutorials like this one, make sure you hit subscribe. Thanks for watching.